Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator webinar. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Miller, and I am Head of Stakeholder Engagement at Built Environment Smarter Transformation, BEST for short. I firstly wanted to apologise, as I think some of you might have received a reminder email today that had the wrong title in it. So you are here for the Edinburgh Homes Demonstrator webinar, not the heat source one, so apologies for that. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Ryan, Associate Director at Scottish Futures Trust, and Sinclair Young, Senior Construction Project Manager at the City of Edinburgh Council. Before we get underway with the webinar today, I'd just like to highlight some housekeeping points that will help the webinar run as smoothly as possible. Firstly, this session will be recorded, and along with the recording and the presentation, it will be shared with all attendees in the coming days, and that will also go out to anyone who's signed up for the webinar but was unable to attend. All participants will be on mute for the duration of the webinar, but I do encourage you to ask questions throughout. To do so, if you look at the panel down the side of your screen and look for the questions tab, click on that, type in your question, and they will be sent to us. We will try our best to answer as many as we can during the conversation today. But your feedback and opinions are extremely important to us and the project, so we will note each and every question, and if we don't have time to answer them today, we will endeavour to do so offline and share these with you as well. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Ryan Sinclair now to give you more information about the project, but as I say, please do type away your questions. We'll get to them at the end. We have about 60 signed up today, so it'll be great to see all of your different questions coming through. So I'm just going to hand over and let Ryan share his screen and take the presentation. So if you just bear with me. There you are, Ryan, should be with you now.
Do you want to kick us off?
There we go. Yep, we can see that fine. That's fab. So just hand over to you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time this morning to join us to talk about the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator and the programme that's delivered. What we're looking to chat to you today about is the introduction to a new delivery model for affordable housing. So we're getting on to that. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? So very much. So to start off, despite what the name might suggest, the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator is not just a programme that was developed by the City of Edinburgh Council. It was actually a collaborative programme that was brought together all of the city, region deal partners for Edinburgh and the South East of Scotland. So that includes all of the local authorities that you can see on the screen there today. The area represents 24% of Scotland's population and has a significant forecast for growth, meaning that there is a high demand within the area. While there may be many challenges, what we were looking to do is to get the opportunities for affordable housing delivery that's faced by, and DHD was there to facilitate knowledge sharing amongst partners and enable coordinated response to these opportunities through the new delivery model. The Edinburgh Home Demonstrator programme itself started in 2020 as a result of an identified opportunity to deliver affordable housing, initially using offsite manufacturing. This was supported by research that was undertaken by Glasgow School of Art and Edinburgh Napier University. To further enhance the collaboration and to support the delivery of the programme, the project partners came together, all of those that you can see on the screen there today, and they represent a wide variety of different sectors, all linked to the delivery of affordable housing and best practice within that. So next one there. So what was the objective of CHD? Well, at the beginning, we set out a vision for what the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator was looking to do. And it really reflects the commitment that was made through the Edinburgh and South East Scotland City Region deal, which was to deliver more affordable housing and to address that growth within the region. Whilst the initial spark for the programme was offsite manufacturing, this quickly led to the establishment of the model, looking at a much wider remit within affordable housing, and then began to capture briefing, design, procurement, and the construction of affordable housing. On to the next one now. In response to the vision, the programme established 5 work streams. The first of those is the demand-led analysis. A review of the demand within the region was established to understand what the opportunity for affordable housing delivery was. It will come as no surprise to you that the demand within the region was huge, given the current context. But this work looked into more detail around how we could collaborate across multiple projects and areas and identify opportunities to unlock sites and affordable housing projects that would have otherwise been unviable if delivered alone. The net zero design and briefing element looked to review the current approaches to delivering net zero homes, the current specifications that housing authorities and registered social landlords are delivering to, the design of those homes, all with a view of creating a unified approach to briefing and design that would unlock the ability to mass produce the homes using offsite manufacture. And Ryan will touch a wee bit more on how that comes through when we go on to the business model element in a little while. The programme identified that there was also a need to test and demonstrate the proposals, and this was done throughout the programme through the 3 pilot projects. Again, the 3 of those pilot projects I will touch on in the slides to come. The new business model, again, fundamental to today's session, which again we'll cover on in more detail soon, but this again was a work stream that sat within the programme. Finally, the 5th of the work streams was to look at whole life performance. This work stream was established to take a more holistic view of the housing delivery and understand more about the impact of the decisions that we are making now on the tenants' health and well-being, the business model for yourselves in terms of housing delivery, and also to look more in detail at the operation and maintenance, so that fundamentally we can ensure that we are learning as much as possible through the pilot projects and applying those lessons learned into future delivery of affordable housing. I think what's key within all of the work streams is that they're all underpinned by the ability to coordinate and share data to make better informed decisions to ensure consistent delivery across the region and beyond. The outcomes of the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator concluded in April 2023 and show a significant amount of information that was used to inform the business model. Some of the key items that I want to just highlight for today's session are the net zero carbon route map, the 16 housing typologies that were developed, and the regional design and performance standard. These are key as they set out the product that will be delivered when using the business model. And again, that product is something that we'll touch on in more detail soon. There is proven support for the approach, as all of the city, region, deal local authorities have committed to support the outcomes of the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator going forwards. These have all been picked up in terms of the outcomes by what's now known as the Regional Delivery Alliance. And this was a reflection of the identified need to change the name to reflect the regional approach that's being taken here. This also reflects the fact that the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator was set up to test and develop an approach to design, briefing, procurement and construction, whereas the Regional Delivery Alliance is now about the application and the enabling of a business as usual model. Move on to pilot projects. We'll now move on to talk more about the 3 pilot projects that have been tested and developed through the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator. The first of these is a project that sits within Granton. This project is delivering 75 affordable housing units. There's a mixture of social rent and mid-market rent within the development, and all of the properties are flats. Integrated within this is there's also 3 commercial units, and the project itself has been delivered by CCG Scotland Limited. Some of the key benefits that have been realised to date are the fact that the pre-construction period only took 15 months from the day that we appointed the contractor to actually getting the project on site. And the project itself is currently about to hand over in the next couple of months, so we'll be looking to have these homes actually occupied within the next 3 months of this year. And once we get to that point, we'll then commence our post-occupancy evaluation work. Because one of the keys to the Pilot 1 project was evaluating the project performance during the design, evaluating the offsite manufacturing. We're going to do a whole series of testing at the handover stage, and we're also going to monitor the project for 12 months whilst it's in use. And all of this data will enable us to better inform how we achieve that net zero carbon deliverable that we're looking to promote through the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator. The Pilot 2 project is also a project within the City of Edinburgh Council. This project is located within the Green Dykes area of Edinburgh and will deliver 140 homes and flats. One of the key deliverables here was the use of the typologies that have been developed through the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator and showing that they can be used and applied within any context. The project is being delivered by Robertson Partnership Homes in partnership with Urban Union. Key here, another key deliverable for this project is the unique ability for it to deliver more than one offsite manufactured system. So by the time we finish Pilot 1 and Pilot 2, we'll have delivered the projects using 3 offsite manufactured systems. So there'll be the one from CCG Scotland Limited, there'll be another one from Donaldson Timber Systems, and another one from Robertson Timber Engineering. And this shows us how we will be able to deliver housing using the same house types and design and performance standards, but with the resilience within that offsite manufacturing sector to deliver those. One of the other key outcomes from this particular pilot was the ability for the original master plan to be increased in terms of its density. The original master plan called for about 130 homes, and through the use of the rationalisation of that design and the use of the typologies on the site, we were able to increase that to 140 homes, therefore delivering more affordable housing for the city. This project is currently looking to enter into contract at the moment with the ambition of being on site this summer, and then we'll have a 2 to 2.5 year delivery programme on the back of that. The third and final pilot project is really looking at testing the delivery model in its entirety. As it stands, there's around 7 sites within the bundle that we're looking to procure, and we've undertaken feasibility studies across all of these, applying the typologies and the design and performance standard, and that's allowed us to de-risk those sites and understand whether the approach that we're taking is applicable to all of those sites. Currently, we're looking to engage, or we are engaging with industry in terms of taking this forwards into the full pre-construction phase, and then the project will take on from there. At this point, I'll hand over to Ryan, who's going to take you into the new business model in some more detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Sinclair. Moving on from Pilot 3, the new business model that arrived as a result of the programme, certainly using a lot of the collateral from each of the pilot projects, as well as the work and research that went on behind the scenes with some of the project partners that Sinclair identified earlier. In summary, the new delivery model includes or revolves around 3 key themes around policy, product and alliance. That policy area generally referring more so to a commitment from the local authority partners to come together and work and collaborate around project opportunities. Within the programme, we do have some pre-agreed seed funding. Going forward, funding will be crucial to delivering the housing programme generally, but equally as an alliance, can we identify collective funding to do that early work to bundle projects together. And the process realignment element, generally referring to a move away from doing one project at a time and pointing towards that collaborative space around bringing this forward, or bringing housing delivery forward as a regional delivery alliance and not just one client or one project at a time. From the pilot projects, perhaps the most ground was gained in the product space, generally around housing typologies and standardising or harmonising specification for the region. And Sinclair mentioned not only the ability for clients to agree to that, but equally engagement with industry was key as well, and looking at how different systems can deliver the same product and not necessarily one size fits all in terms of a wall build up to get into a technical detail, for example. But there are some elements of standardised structural systems there, whether it be closed panels or modular opportunities. It's certainly two avenues that the programme explored as well. So moving from the summary into the more detailed parts of the model, again, a policy commitment from the 6 local authorities to come forward, identify pipeline, but equally from that pipeline, which projects are at an early enough stage to come forward as a bundle of projects key to the delivery model, doing early feasibility work not only to test the viability of projects, but bake in the housing typologies as well as the design and performance standard, but equally mindful of an approach to delivering these projects using off-site systems. That said, off-site is perhaps not as new or modern a method as it is for others elsewhere in the rest of the UK. Certainly Scotland has a strong history of delivering housing using timber kit, but equally, how can that be more advanced? How can we do more in the factory, and how can we set up projects in a way that supports that? And key to that, something consistent with Housing to 2040 is this idea of collaboration, and collaboration around procurement. But in more simple terms, how can we bundle projects together to realise cost efficiencies? Early work with industry suggests there's somewhere between 0 and 2% in terms of cost savings to be had on those early Pathfinder projects. The more focused business modelling that was done by some of the strategic consultants on the programme suggests that can be pushed in excess of 10%. And when we're talking about an affordable housing programme, key to that being scale, we're not going to realise those benefits unless we scale up the approach to the delivery model as well. But bringing it back into focus as well, the overarching vision around this, off-site being one thing, but equally to deliver net zero ready homes. We were very conscious of describing these as net zero ready homes simply because there are a lot of ways to measure net zero out there, but equally a lot of external factors from the project, in one example, decarbonising the grid. So really around higher performing homes beyond baseline building standards, and looking at net zero opportunities around fabric first as well as net zero technologies. Keen to support growth and investment in both the local and regional and national supply chains. So this wasn't about just building all the homes in Scotland in 2 or 3 big factories across the central belt. It equally relies on local supply chain and local trades where they are available, so how they could both complement one another. And that's a function of the delivery model as well as the regional delivery alliance, as well as to focus and identify such opportunities, and not to lose sight of the overarching ambition around improving homes for people, place and well-being. So whilst we're promoting typologies, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Homes can still be tailored to their specific localities with a mindful of place. Bringing forward a regional product, simplified very simply, the opportunity to standardise what's inside the box per se. Sinclair mentioned a look at demand and a look at pipeline, but part of the programme also looked at what was being delivered across multiple projects. Across 10 projects that were sampled, there were 90 different house types. So a move away from prototyping in every single project, and how could we come to agreement on typologies, given that there are only so many ways we can commercially develop house and flat types. But equally, when we stood back from what was being delivered, there was a commonality of the general layout and the general programme of each house and flat type. So we were able to reach agreement with the 6 local authority partners on what a house and flat type collection could look like, but equally leaving room for customisation in terms of the building envelope, in terms of how they're arranged on site as terraces, semi-detached, how they address corner situations, for example. Again, this idea of being mindful of place. And that approach to standardising the internal box has been met with industry as a, if we can look at isolating from the ground up, all the abnormals that we typically come up against in affordable housing being below the ground, but equally if we can agree to standardise as far as possible within a price point above ground, then we can have economies of scale not only within a project but within a bundle of projects as well. And moving the types forward, applying the typologies coupled with a design and performance standard which has net zero at the heart of it, coming forward by way of a matrix, not only for briefing and for detailed design, but equally to look at that in terms of what's been delivered, what's been handed over, and then how it performs in use as well. A big part of the demonstrator was to do performance monitoring, which Sinclair mentioned in Pilot 1's about to kick off, on a wide range of units, not just 1 or 2 within Pilot 1. There's almost 20 units of varying types being sampled there to provide some rich feedback in terms of how close they are to net zero, but equally how close they are to be delivering what was said on the tin, essentially, this idea of narrowing the performance gap. Not only net zero, but also promoting application of off-site opportunities through closed panels as a minimum. The definition of closed panel can vary slightly, but generally at least having one side being enclosed with insulation in as a minimum. But there is capability in Scotland to deliver more than that, with closed panels coming to site with plasterboard and services in, for example. And equally, that design and performance standard wasn't only around the technical aspects, but also the scope for social impact. So again, this idea of supporting local supply chain opportunities and also community wealth building and well-being as well linked to place. Part of this slide was also already identified in Pilot 2, but again, key to developing typologies, not only engaging with clients, but equally engaging with industry. Engaging with industry that deliver open, closed and modular systems, so that the typologies can be developed by various contractors and off-site suppliers. But an example here of how a design and performance standard coupled with typologies can deliver different solutions appropriate to place. It's not a case of the same looking house type. These are just 3 examples. These aren't reference designs. These are just some of the ideas that have been brought forward through the pilot projects as well, under that concept of mass customisation. And then how do we hold all this together? Originally there was an interim delivery partner set up as part of the programme, which has now evolved into the Regional Delivery Alliance, as Sinclair alluded to, with both resource and financial support coming forward from each of the 6 local authorities involved in the South East region. But it's not only for local authorities to deliver. Equally, there's an appreciation that a lot of the housing delivery across the region and Scotland comes forward by RSLs and housing associations, but there's also a part for the private sector to play as well. And that's key in terms of identifying pipeline. A lot of work's been done by the Regional Delivery Alliance to identify what the pipeline looks like, not just what the strategic housing investment programme looks like in each of those local authority areas, but where are the opportunities to get involved early, to bake in the collateral or the kit of parts, if you like, and really drive forward the scope for economies of scale and benefits that the programme approach can offer. So the Delivery Alliance at the moment exists with support from myself and Sinclair on a day-to-day basis, but there is work underway to create a role within that Delivery Alliance to be supported on a full-time basis, and for it to grow within the region as well, and support and hold a knowledge hub. We do have a knowledge hub that exists at the moment, which is, I suppose, a members area, if you like. So if there are people on the call today that would like access to that knowledge hub, we will provide details for contact later. But if you can provide your name and email, we can give access to that knowledge hub. But that gives access to some of the collateral, again, around types and design and performance standards that may be applicable to your projects as well. But key to this, again, bringing forward scope for collaborative delivery. In other words, bundling projects together. How can we turn that pipeline into a number of bundles? It's not about one big procurement, it's about marrying projects together that have similar challenges, similar context, similar programmes as well. So just some of the things that are considerations when we are looking to bundle projects. And Pilot 3 of the programme has identified the first bundle for the region at the moment, which we're bringing forward into a combined procurement with one contractor and one design team to drive some of those economies of scale furthermore. Admittedly, there are maybe some examples of that being done elsewhere across the country, but typically one client or one local authority area at the time. What we're looking to drive is a regional approach, again, the idea of increasing scale and opportunity to meet with some of those efficiencies. Just a very basic approach to how the process has been mapped out. So key to that, or an early bundling of projects, essentially a long listing, and it's something we'd be keen to speak to anybody on the call today that's interested in learning more about the approach. But once we've done that long listing and finding those projects that are an opportunity to be taken forward together, the programme had looked at some early design work. Again, there were some economies found there by approaching a single design team with early contractor involvement to really look at the viability of projects at that very early stage of capacity studies and feasibility, teasing out those big risk items. Can we identify them and look at how we might address them going forward with other projects, again, to dilute some of the cost and risk associated with those that we commonly find in affordable housing. From step 1, step 2, early design feasibility, into step 3, looking at how we create that alliance, essentially who's committed to come forward as a bundle. So taking that early bundle, i.e. a pipeline, into a more definitive bundle, potentially 2 or 3 projects, more likely and better if we can aim for sort of half a dozen to really drive those economies of scale. And then step 4, early contractor involvement continues through the detailed design stage. So the model promoted contractor-led design teams to develop the design and technical stages of the project from sort of REBA stage 2 onwards through to start on site. Can be done through pre-contract services agreements, but equally there are framework opportunities that promote that as well by way of a fuller service. So that's step 5, although quite simple on that page. Key to developing and taking the projects forward to construction and then delivering through step 6. And step 7 not to be forgotten about as well, as we've mentioned through the pilot projects. It's not only about demonstrating the ambition and the compliance through design and construction, but equally how can the Alliance hold this together and demonstrate performance and use as well. in the sort of very simple terms, done through control of the product that we're asking for, and equally how we're delivering it, how we're going about, and more assured ways of doing that using offsite as well. And just to add some further information to those steps, and we'll share the slides as part of this presentation as well, with the recording going out, so you can look at these in terms of the detail going forward. I'm happy to take questions today, but equally after the event as well. But again, key to early decisions being data. Pipeline is one aspect of data, but programme and the data that we hold on projects as well, helping us to bundle more effectively. Key to stage 2 being that feasibility work, but doing it in a joined up way, so that we have, it sounds very simple, but a success of pilot 3 in its infancy, in its feasibility stage, was having 10 feasibility reports written in the same format, so that we could compare apples with apples in terms of how we bundle going forward, how we identify risks, how we manage risks, and equally how we progress in a more joined up way linked to programme and funding milestones as well. And pilot step 3, again with pilot 3, we're in that close arrangement of bundling projects together, holding them together, navigating the challenges together as well. And again, that's consistent through stages 4, 5 and 6, and a key function of the Delivery Alliance is to hold the projects together through those key stages. So something we're keen on, certainly as part of the Regional Delivery Alliance, is identifying more pipeline. Whilst there's a lot of work being done by the Delivery Alliance to date, it relies on a lot of communication and collaboration with the key players in terms of delivering affordable housing. Again, not only local authority, very much so RSLs and housing associations, and also opportunities for the private sector as well. And in terms of those early stages for pipeline, what we ask for in terms of submitting sites to us are a few very simple things, but also very fundamental. Very obvious things like name, address, its status in any given SHIP programme. It's helpful to know key dates, if there are any dates linked to funding and relative to project start, construction start and completion. But it may sound simple, even things like a red line plan and title report being key at this stage to identify the full opportunity for every and any site. Project budget, very topical at the moment given the cuts to funding, but equally keen to speak about that early stages too. It helps to think about this if there is an idea of how many homes we're looking to create as part of any given project. Again, something that influences how we bundle projects together, and equally tenure as well, given the various tenures that exist in the affordable housing delivery programme, not just social rent, for example. And once that information is provided, the Alliance is set up to help, certainly within the South East at the moment, around bringing those projects forward together in a more joined up way. Equally though, we aren't too precious around the geography. The programme is set up for the South East, but if there are neighbouring local authority areas or projects that we might be able to help and bundle in with other projects within the region, we're happy to look at those as well. Equally, if there's ambitions to do something like this in other areas of the country, we're happy to help in terms of the learning from the programme as well, and how we might set that up. So equally keen to hear from organisations in terms of that opportunity, not only in terms of project pipeline, but the ability to set up similar delivery alliance and business model approaches across the rest of Scotland as well. And that brings us to the end of the formal presentation part, where we're open for questions and answers just now. There's equally more information on the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator as part of the website that exists and the various social media channels as well. We can share an email address after the event as well if there are any questions that come up, or there's an opportunity to get involved and help on each or any of your projects or programs that you might think would offer or be appropriate for the business model and the alliance approach.
Great, thank you both so much. I will just take the screen back so we're all on here. Fab. So we've had a couple of questions coming through, which is great, but yeah, please keep asking these and we'll get through as many as we can. Some of them you might have slightly covered, but we'll just go over them to make sure we get them all. So first question I've got here from Mike is asking if the Edinburgh Homes Demonstrator project is more about low-cost construction or more low-cost running costs, like, for example, heating.
I think the pragmatic answer to that is it's about a balanced approach. And what we're looking to do is provide a product that is really high performing to address things like fuel poverty. So then the ongoing running costs for the tenant, and equally the organisation that's operating and maintaining those homes is lower. But that inevitably comes with a slightly higher construction cost. Some of the work that we've been doing through the programme is to benchmark, and this probably leads on to another question that's come up, is to benchmark the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator Design and Performance Standard versus the current building regulations, and also our passive house approach as well. So we feel like we're in the higher end in terms of the energy performance, but again, it's about balancing that up with the costs.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. Thank you for that. And we have a couple of questions asking about when or will the data be shared and made public for everyone to view?
So yes, absolutely, the data will be shared, and we have finished off the interim design report on the energy analysis for the Pilot 1 project, and we'll be putting that up on our website imminently, really, so that people can see that. Where that sits at the minute, just to give you some of the headlines from that, the current performance of the building is pretty close to a passive level when it comes to energy demand for each of these properties. It's not quite at that passive level, but again, it was that balancing approach that we were taking in terms of going for the fabric first approach, married up with ensuring that the projects are viable and deliverable. And I think that's really where this programme sits, is about making sure that we can deliver affordable housing and not pricing ourselves out of that market.
Yep, perfect. And kind of on the back of that, about it being published, a question that is there the potential for it to be replicated on organisations' own accounts, so a private or third-party developer, or are the findings and design templates guarded? What's the...
Not at all. We've certainly shared it with other local authorities and RSL partners, as well as private sector partners. So if people would like to learn more in that respect, then happy for them to get in touch, and we can look to share some of that knowledge and reference material as well.
Yeah, and yeah, when you the attendees today, when you get the email back with the recording and the slides, just email back if you would like to be involved in the Knowledge Hub or anything that you would like me to send over to Ryan and Sinclair, and we can make sure you have all the right contact details for that. Question here from Helen. I'd be interested to know how you plan to monitor the performance of the net zero homes during the defects period.
So the Pilot 1 project, which is undertaking that 12-month post-occupancy evaluation, that work is being led by the University of Edinburgh, so there's an element of independence there around that post-occupancy evaluation. They equally did the interim report for the as designed building. The intention there is that at handover stage they'll undertake a whole host of testing around actual in situ U value testing, air tightness testing, there'll be some sound testing, some of the usual testing parameters that you would do within a building in any case. And what they'll do with that data is they're going to take that data at handover stage and they're going to put that into the digital twin that they've created of the building. So then we'll be able to see what the difference between the as designed and the as constructed is. Over the 12-month period, we'll then be monitoring things like the internal air temperature, CO2 levels within the property, And again, all of that data will be pushed into that digital twin. I think what's really key to that post-occupancy valuation work is also the survey work that we're going to do with the tenants and understanding the impact of the homes on their health and well-being. Quite often we can get stuck in that data-driven mode, and we're looking at some of the softer data around the impact on the tenants as well. So again, that will enable us to understand some of the trends and actually enable us as a affordable housing provider to potentially take some preventative action if we can see some trends that are potentially going to cause things like, I don't know, damp or mold, which is quite a high priority topic for us at the moment. We might be able to see some of those trends come through that data and enable us to either educate the tenant on how to manage the property more efficiently, or enable us to take action to rectify any defects or anything that are identified as a result of that. So that, alongside the energy performance of the home set, will also be captured as well. So we'll be able to see the actual energy usage of the homes, and we'll compare that to the SAP calculations and such like that we're undertaking at the design stage. And that again is allowing us to evaluate quite effectively what that performance gap between the as designed and the as built is, and feed that into future projects, because we will inevitably review and take forward that design and performance standard based on the evidence that comes out of these kind of projects.
Great, thank you for that. I know you've kind of answered this, but it has came through now a couple of times, so I'm just going to ask one of them around the Scottish passive house equivalent. So for this delivery model, was there any consideration given to the pending Scottish equivalent passive house, and how might this integrate to the model? There's about 3 or 4 questions on just how these might match up.
So it's probably worth me giving a little bit of context from the client side, and then Ryan, I'll get you to come in following that as well. So at the outset of the project, when we did that work around the design and performance standard and the typologies, where we reviewed all of the regional partners' current standards, we undertook a series of workshops with them to understand some of the challenges around, achieving net zero that we have at the moment. And one of those was around the air tightness part, which then links into the passive house kind of approach. And at the time that we undertook that work, and the views may have changed since then, but at the time when we undertook that work, there was some feedback that at the moment the sector didn't feel like it was ready for that operation and maintenance side, and equally the education side that would be required for the tenants who are actually living in the home. So we steer clear of the air tightness part in the design and performance standard, but as a holistic kind of approach, we have gone for really high performing envelopes and things like that as well, to make sure we're achieving as much of those net zero kind of criteria as we can at this point in time. But again, there was a conversation around passive house at that point, and we do have some projects that may come forward that will use that standard. So there is the flexibility built within the model to kind of take the EDHD's design and performance standard and plug in that passive standard should we need to do that. But we do think at the moment it's in quite a resilient position, because it's way beyond what the building regulations are requiring, albeit those regulations year on year are creeping up to catch up with us since we started this in 2020. So we are in a very good position with the energy performance, but not prescribing passive house at this point in time, but it is an option therefore for the client should they wish to take that on.
Yeah, I think there was always an intention with the types and the standard to be an iterative approach, so it wouldn't necessarily be the same standard and types that we deliver for the next 10 years. For example, there's generally a commitment to revise, update, develop every second year as part of the Alliance approach, generally learning from what's been delivered before, but equally what new standards evolve as well. So certainly there's scope for this to flex depending on how the equivalent standard is finalised and what it actually looks like, but equally there's an approach there to help facilitate any new standards delivery, equally as other standards that are evolving potentially as well are things like housing for varying needs, and it's something that we were mindful of when we developed the types and the standard too, and tried to incorporate some provision for that as best we could with the information that was available to us at that time. Again, something that's not yet been finalised but is on the horizon. I suppose second to that as well was there are about 16 types at the moment that we've developed. 10 initially, a few more came forward as part of Pilot 2, but it was never meant to be a closed catalogue. So when new things evolve like this, there's scope to develop new types. But the real avoidance is types for any given project. It's more about how those types could be reused and be developed along the themes that have been created as part of the pilot projects too. So there's certainly scope for what's been done so far to evolve, and depending on how the standard comes forward.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, we had quite a few questions on that, so hopefully that has cleared up that question. That's fab. So we've got a question here from Louise. It can be quite common to see new builds, more so with estates with no facilities nearby. Are local facilities something you look at too, and transport links?
Yeah, I think that's something that probably failed to mention as part of the place design and performance standard, as well as it has a focus on place. So working with the place standard tool that's been developed, and actually consider place as a first principle as well. But equally there's a planning dimension. So we have been working with planning departments across the local authority area as well to identify some of these opportunities too.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Question here from Niall. What are the constraints to success which are not in the gift of the Regional Delivery Alliance or others who might take part, but could be supported by more national level strategies or interventions?
I think there's a follow-on question to that comments about the recent housing cuts as well around the funding for this. So I think the biggest threat for this type of model at the moment is that security around pipeline. It's reliant on that consistent approach to delivery. So really, with that in mind, we've identified a pipeline across the region. We know that it could be delivered. It's just about unlocking that through various funding avenues and such like to enable that. And perhaps there's an approach there that we look at that through some slightly different funding streams to enable that to happen and enable us to address the ongoing housing emergencies that we are seeing popping up across the country.
I think some of the constraints as well around procurement potentially, given that most projects have to go some form of procurement route, i.e. a framework, and some of the existing frameworks are quite restrictive in what can be done, and certainly that's a big part of the Regional Delivery Alliance, is to work within the bounds of existing frameworks as best we can. Although how can we inform frameworks going forward? But equally it comes back to this idea of a delivery model approach. It's not about a single delivery model for one element of the project, i.e. just construction or just procurement or even just funding. It's thinking about how a more joined up delivery model approach across the whole project cycle, not only in design and development and construction, but in use as well, can support that. So how we might scale that from a regional approach into a more sort of national level strategies potentially, thought going forward as well. But equally we're minded that we need to start from the ground up and really focus on driving it forward at a regional level first to scale the opportunity, scale pipeline, scale the offering to the marketplace as well to return those economies of scale with pricing, for example, when we are in such challenging times with funding.
Yeah, I think something we're all aware of is if you can go to them with a model that works and tried and tested and look at it working here, then that's where it can scale up, can't it, and hopefully open more areas of funding. So yeah, no, that makes sense. I've got a question here about offsite manufacturing. So Neil would be interested to know, in terms of offsite manufacturing contracts, how have these been structured to allow payment certificates to be verified in terms of quality and before delivery to site?
So under the current pilot projects that we have, because the organisations that are taking this forward, this is a kind of business as usual model to deliver offsite manufactured kits to sites. there's not been a specific mechanism or need or want from the contracting side to have those offsite valuations undertaken. That's primarily because we're looking at a closed panel system on the pilot projects at the moment. When we move into the modular space, then obviously the value of that product that sits off-site then leaves the contracting partner open to more risk. So that is something that we would look at. But under the current contractual conditions, there are mechanisms within there that you can agree off-site valuations. So at the moment, we're working on design build type contracts. So we've been using those to date. So it is something that is on our radar, and we would deal with on a project kind of on a bundle to bundle case, because it would be dependent on the level of risk and exposure to both client and contracting side. Because inevitably, what we're trying to do here is not have the siloed effect of the contractor on one side and the client on the other. We're looking for a much more collaborative approach to ensure that both parties are getting the end product and the result that they're looking for. So working with them in that space to ensure there's a better delivery for both partners.
Great. Thank you for that. So we've just got one more question before we wrap up. It's quite a big question, so bear with me while I read it out for everyone. So what is one key thing that local authorities could replicate which helped the Edinburgh and South East partners pursue and commit to a regional approach instead of continuing its go alone and individual strategic housing authorities? Big question.
Good one to end, I think.
Yeah, good one to end on, yeah.
I think from my perspective, the one thing is that collaboration around a consistent approach to briefing. So that be using the typologies and that more standardized approach to the specification of the product that you're looking for. I think at the moment we're in a bit of a stage of flux because there's a lot of unknowns around what net zero means. There's no defined definition for that, which is causing a challenge for us. But if we're to kind of corral around a single or a more narrowed scope in terms of what that looks like, that will help the supply chain to respond more effectively to that and avoid that prototyping on project-to-project basis, enable them to gain the efficiencies that they can from supply chains because they understand better what that consistent approach requires and therefore needs to be delivered. So I think that's probably the one thing that I would say, if we can get more consistency around what we're actually asking for, then we should get a better consistency in terms of the product that comes out the other side as well.
You've stolen my answer, Sinclair. The only thing I really would say to that is it's just that very idea of going it alone. I suppose it's to stop going it alone. I think a big eureka moment for the regional partners we're doing exactly the same. You know, these are the same challenges. We're asking for the same thing, but not asking for it in a joined up way. So let's stop going it alone and let's find a partner or partners to buddy up with and really share the pain, but equally share the gains that are on offer as well. Especially and we've talked a lot about the affordable housing programme from a new build perspective today. I think there's also opportunity from a retrofit point of view in that respect, and a similar model could flip to approach retrofit as well, by taking a more common approach to that, where we can find commonalities a bit more difficult perhaps when we're talking about retrofit, but equally there will be commonalities that we can identify, but relies a lot on not going it alone and finding a common approach.
Great. So yeah, less silos, more working together, problem shared, problem halved, all of that kind of. Yep. No, that's fab. Any last comments from you both before I close up?
I think it's just to finally note that that our door is open as a regional delivery alliance, and we'd encourage engagement with us if there's any queries or anything kind of on the back of today's session. It really is kind of an opportunity for us to work up in a more joined up way. We're all facing challenges around funding and personnel resource as well, and the role of the regional delivery alliance is to try and alleviate some of those pressures where we can, and assist in terms of maximising the output that we can produce with the now reduced funds and things that are coming forward. So it's about maximising that opportunity that we do.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, and it's great to see. I think it shows just we had so many signed on today, and then by the questions as well, that there are a lot. So as I say, when you get your email back from the end of the webinar, please do continue to ask any questions, or let us know if you want to be part of that Knowledge Hub. So yeah, just for me to wrap up then, thank you for both Ryan and Sinclair for your time today, and to the audience as well for your important questions. Your feedback, you will receive a feedback form just as you sign off today. That's to support both of us for any future events and initiatives that we're hoping to run. So please do take your time to just fill it out and let us know if there's information that you would like to have that you haven't received. Finally, if you look into your chat box, you will see a couple of links there to various websites and case studies that has more information about the project. These will also be on your email that you receive probably tomorrow with the recording and the presentation. So that's all that leaves me to say is thank you for attending today, and I hope you have a lovely Wednesday, and bye for now. Thanks everyone.